Stina, take it away. Oh, he's working on it.
So here we are. Yes, so I'm introducing Dr. Fauché, Laura Fauché. She's been with us since November of this past year, so about a year. And when she first came to us, she really wanted to have balance in her practice and in her life. And she's a single mother of 3 young girls, single but now newly engaged. We didn't have anything to do with that, so we can't take credit for that. But she has a lot of great things going on in her life, and so balance was a big thing for her, to be able to have a practice that really works well, so that she could really have a home life that was good too. So the other thing that she had as a goal was to be in the Big Docs Club, and she was able to do that with flying colors this year, so that's pretty exciting. And I'm going to have my dad introduce.
Well, so this is Josh.
Oh.
Josh Lute's been a client for several years. And here's the thing I think is interesting about Josh. You know, Josh, 2 years ago, he and his wife took a month off and went to Bora Bora. Took their one little boy. Mysteriously, they now have 2 children. It might have something to do with the month off in Bora Bora, I don't know. But last year, they went to Hawaii for a month. And Josh says, I take my watch and my shoes off, and I don't put either one back on for a month. And he comes back ready to go to work. So we were up hunting last week, and Josh is talking about, well, how could I take a month off and go skiing? And I said, so Josh, are you going to not go to Hawaii next year? He says, no, I'm thinking about going to Hawaii for a month at Christmas, and then taking April off and going skiing. Now, he also realizes he can only do this for a few more years until that little boy gets to school, and they can't do this. But in the meantime, that's what they're doing. So it was kind of fun. And Matt Fluge, one of the other clients, came into hunting camp 2 years ago, and they're doing about the same production level. And Matt had worked 20 more days, or 14 more days than Josh. And so that became a new goal for Matt. It's how he could get it down to be like Josh. So what we're going to talk about today is how do you do that? And Roy has been a client for several years. 8 years? Did you have hair when we started? more than I do, but it goes by fast. And Roy has been out to a lot of seminars that we do. But Roy is real active. For Roy, it wasn't about earning more money, it was about having more time. And as I've said before, Roy is very active in organized dentistry, the ADA leadership positions, and we may see him even more involved. And one of the things that what came up is that they said, well, if you do take this position, you know, you can only work maybe 160 days. And Roy didn't say anything, but he says, I don't work that much now. So, and so this is what we want to do. So we're going to, Brad and Christina have some questions we're going to ask. We've got some microphones. I want you to share, ask them questions. How do they do this? And they were chosen not for huge production. I mean, I wanted doctors in this group that were very productive, but have really kind of put together, you know, a balance in life. And, you know, I'm kind of one, I don't know if balance in life is really possible. I kind of think that pain just tells us where to put our attention. But truly, and that's what Laura has done. I mean, you put the attention on family. And so, is it balance? I don't know, but it's going to be fun. So you guys take it away. You've got some great questions. I know, Stina, you had a question to start with, and then open to you folks.
Good. Okay, so my first question, and I just like each of you to go on down the line. So this is a question that we heard a little bit about, Josh Lute shared with us, that I thought would be a really good one, and that is, what does a perfect day look like in your office?
Oh, starting with me?
Yeah.
Usually, I mean, we try to keep our blocks sacred in the morning. And if I can go to lunch having produced $8,000 or better in dentistry, we know it's going to be a good day. And that's pretty much been the focus. And it follows suit with keeping the blocks open. You know, Tuesday when I came back from hunting, there wasn't a whole lot on our schedule in the morning because it was wide open. I think we finished the day at 17. So, I mean, it's mainly a team thing with accountability.
And what is your daily goal?
Anywhere from 11 to 16 works pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, but specifically, like in the morning, what does that look like for you?
It can take the shape in a few different forms, but mainly, I'm looking at a couple implants, quadrant-of-CEREC dentistry, soft tissue surgeries, anything of the like that's, again, if I can hit $8,000 by lunch, I'm doing pretty good.
Thank you.
So with that in, oh, go ahead, sorry. With that in mind, you said you're thinking maybe of doing Hawaii and skiing. So how many days total do you expect to work in 2015?
I'm at 106 right now. I don't know if I'm going to go down any lower next year, but my goal from the start has been to get below 90. So we'll see if we can make that happen.
Well, I work a few more days than 90, but not what some people do. So our ideal day, I think an ideal day in my office, we do oral conscious sedation. So I enjoy a day where we come in and do a set of wisdom teeth right off. We may sedate that patient, and with oral conscious sedation, we have about an hour free before that. So a lot of times we'll sedate a patient while they're being sedated. I'll prep one or two. I like 2 crowns in the adjacent chair. So quickly we've done that and a set of wisdom teeth in about the first 2 hours. And then we finish the morning probably with crown and bridge and maybe a new patient right before lunch. So my goal in the office is 8,000. We do the hygienist. Other part of an ideal day in my office is only one hygienist. So the hygienist does about 1,500. I'm doing about 6,500. And just like it's been said, we want about 80 or 90% of that done before morning. The afternoon is just oblivion. It's just running and doing little piddly stuff all afternoon. And I do a little of everything, composites, alloys, dentures, and all that's just, it's just I hate to say junk, but if in a general practice, you can't just do crown and bridge. There are patients that come in that need restorative, and you got to fit that in sometime, but not in the middle of the morning. We hold those blocks open pretty rigorously, and there are days when you go in and you're like, oh my goodness, there's a lot of free time, but we know the next day we'll hold the blocks open again, and we're committed to that, and that's why we meet our goals.
Very good, thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, I'm in a practice where there used to be 2 dentists and now there's just 1, and the reason that I ended up hiring Bill was because we didn't have blocks. My time wasn't sacred, and I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off, and I wasn't really making that much money either. So what you're saying is about protecting those block times is so important, because you can work super hard, and you can feel really busy, but not actually have anything to take home.
So I have a question for each of you. So do you have those pre-blocks? Are those blocks all paid for when they make their appointments?
He just had to ask that. No, but I've got like 4 people at my table saying, why aren't you doing that? Why aren't you doing that? And they're on my team.
Yes, well, my patients pay half of their portion in order to make an appointment in a block.
Josh?
At least half, but we're trying to get 100%.
Yeah,
That's still
at least half.
accountability. Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
So questions about their ideal day? I mean, look, these are just, I mean, understand, these 3 are not doing heroics, but look at the difference in their goals per day. And that's, how do you raise your goal per day? Josh, how'd you raise that goal per day? I mean, you're at $15,000, $16,000.
We added more treatment. I think one of the biggest things is definitely sales skills on the team and accountability. Mm-hmm. It's amazing, but you set a goal and all of a sudden you're just reaching it.
And, go ahead.
Oh, well, one of the things that I wanted to ask Laura is about the E4D and her ideal schedule that she put together with that. So when we add different services, which she did, she put together a special schedule just for that. And I think that that's just something for everyone to look at, is once we have put together an ideal schedule, we'll change things. And so that's not static, that is a work in progress. So with her office, she is adding LNAP in the next few months. And so then we'll need to look at that as a service and how timing with that will look like. So, you want to talk about that?
Sure. And I have no idea when I'm going to do the Lanap, though.
All right.
So we like to do E4D crowns when we can. It's a wonderful system for making the crowns. We really like to do Emax crowns, but they take a little bit of time. You know, it's got to mill, and then it's got to bake, and seeding it takes a little longer than, you know, seeding a PFM with some luting cement. So we realized that actually doing a CAD-CAM crown takes a little bit longer of chair time. Luckily, I have an extra chair, so we expanded the schedule to include that chair. And we start the morning with an E4D crown in one column. And in another column, we've got double crown preps that are going to go to the lab, because those are quicker, one after the other. And then another E4D crown that we start later on in the morning. And then in the afternoon, we do 2 more CAD-CAM crowns. Same thing. So if you add all of that up, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, $8,000 of blocks each day, and then we've got hygiene plus, you know, whatever I got to do my duty as a dentist with the restorative work and dentures and things like that.
Very good. Thank you.
Question?
I have a question about the payment of the expected money before the block booking is scheduled. And I'm making some assumptions, and I was just wondering for some clarification about when the other half is paid. If 50% is
If you
paid
get half when they make the appointment.
to
when
make
do
the
they-
appointment, when is the other half expected?
Good question.
The assistant collects the money as they're getting ready to leave the operatory.
So the difference in the collection of the first half of the patient expectation and the second half of the patient expectation is the first half is collected at the time of booking and the second half is collected at the time of treatment.
At the time of treatment.
After treatment.
Yep. Even before they get out of the chair.
And Dr. Blatchford is, and I'd imagine that there would be a short time period in between those two dates, like of a month or less or so. Then, Dr. Blatchford, do you believe that there would be a significant difference in the case acceptance if those two dates
I don't
fell
know. Are you talking to
on the
me or
same
my
time?
daughter?
Either one who wishes to answer would be appropriate.
What was the question again?
Okay, I got the question. So,
oh.
bottom line is, the answer is no. Is somebody going to say no, that they're not going to accept the case because you want payment? Listen, why would you want to treat that patient?
Okay.
Why would you want to treat a patient who doesn't want to pay you? I think the question is wonderful, because I think a lot of teams out there believe that, you know, if we ask for payment, they may say no. Thank you so much. You just saved me from doing a crown for nothing. I mean, I've tried it both ways. I like getting paid. I notice that everyone in this room has paid me, right? And look at the room. It's wonderful. And if we just said, well, you know, it's okay. No. I mean, and the thing is, too, in all of these offices, in your office, in most of your offices, from the time the patient says yes till you get them in, we're probably talking, in some cases, a few minutes, in some cases, hours, in some cases, a few days. We're not talking weeks. And anytime you tie the payment to completion or satisfaction, I can almost guarantee you, you're going to have problems. In other words, you pay me when you're satisfied. You pay me when we're done. Oh, you're not quite done, doctor. I don't like this right here. And you'll go on forever with these people. So to answer your question, Michael, I say get the money. And if they don't want to do it because they don't have the money, wouldn't you like to find that out before you schedule them? Over here, Chad. Wait till you get a mic, Chad.
Lately, we've been collecting before the drill starts to turn, so you get the second installment as they get in the chair. Then you don't have that gap where I'll go get my credit card or checkbook or...
Excellent.
Yeah, they look for wiggle room.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, any questions for our panelists? Yes.
I have a question that goes back to your schedule, where you had said that a majority of your production is done in the morning and then your afternoons are filled with smaller appointments. And we started with that and we got really backed up in sterilization. It just felt like everything was churning, and then at the end of our patient day, then we have to finish up. And so how do you balance that busyness with all the extras that come with the changeover of rooms and the extra sterilizing, and how does that work in your office?
Yeah, I'd have to have my team up here to answer that. They get it done somehow. We try to finish at 5 and have a huddle at about 5:15 to finish up. So they got about 15 minutes there, but it's just chaos. If the hygienist has some free time, she's down getting my patient anesthetized. If the Veronica at the front desk has some free time, she's coming back checking to see if I need her. She may pick up a hygiene room. The assistants run in the hygiene room to help somebody chart perio. Everybody does everything, and somehow they make that magic happen.
Josh?
A lot of times with larger blocks, you'll also notice that, some of our best days are some of the easiest ones because you're not turning a lot of rooms. You might do that work on 1 or 2 patients.
You can also, in order to help alleviate that backup, you can suggest to the patient that they get that DO done the next time they come for their cleaning. And I have timed it. It takes me less than 15 minutes, probably 10, because the hygienist has already gotten them numb. Little time savers like that, or I don't know.
That's perfect. And, and I will actually be talking about that a little bit tomorrow, because I think that as a group here, we probably have mastered, or pretty much mastered, the AM blocks, but it's the evening or the afternoon that becomes a little foggy. Is it really a free-for-all? Do we need to be running around like crazy? And I think that part of that is that we need to define those appointments a little bit more than they might be defined. And one of the ways that we do that is just what Laura is saying, that when we have a small filling in hygiene, we can either choose to do it right then. We can choose to, depending upon what it looks like, wait until the next time that the patient is in, convenient for the patient as well, or do it with some additional treatment that they might have done. My last choice is schedule a separate appointment for that patient. However, that the last option is done. With those type of appointments, it is okay to even be 4 to 6 weeks out with that, depending upon what that looks like. So something to keep in mind, that we don't necessarily have to be running around like crazy in the afternoons. Question?
Wait a minute.
Go ahead, Josh. Ask your question.
I just wanted to make a quick comment to this table that just asked the question. One thing we've done, I was going to say that would probably help them at Dr. Lutz besides block booking, but the whole afternoon mayhem thing, we love it. 'Cause you're running around and it's great, but it is kind of frustrating at the end of the day sometimes. So obviously we all help each other, everything like that. But one thing we did start doing was Beth Ann would put a block at 4:30 p.m. to 5 p.m. in Dr. Lutz's schedule and not put anything big in there.
Absolutely.
So we
that's
just
key.
started blocking him off from 4:30 to 5, and that when we do that and we stick to that, it really helps.
One of
So I
the
was just
things
gonna say
that you
that.
remind me, one of the things we started doing about 8 months ago, we got where we were getting out late. We don't schedule any patient after 4 o'clock. If it's a 10-minute denture check, it's at 4 o'clock. If it's a 20-minute alloy, it's at 4 o'clock. So I know when I see the 4 o'clock patient seated, that's the end of my day, however long it's going to take. Now, there may be 3 at 4 o'clock, but we don't do anything at 4:45. Then they're the ones seated at 5 and we're getting out late. That's helped us, I think, a good bit.
Josh, you had something?
Have you figured out what your cost or overhead per hour is yet?
We need a microphone there. So. Yes, and so here's the thing. Once you know your cost per hour, don't schedule those little things you're not going to produce your cost per hour. Do what Christina is saying. Do what these panelists are saying. Combine procedures. Try to avoid all those little appointments. Christina used the example. A little DO that you discovered with your 9 power loops, it'll probably be okay if you don't treat it in the next week or 2. It'll probably be okay. But I think if we're not thinking, we discover this in a recall visit and we just automatically say, oh, schedule an appointment. well, you're not going to make your overhead per hour. Combine it with the next time they have their teeth cleaned. I mean, that's why hygienists can give anesthetic and, get it all set up, and it takes you 5 minutes to do it instead of a separate appointment. So kind of be thinking, combine procedures, do everything you can, and you can eliminate an awful lot of those afternoon appointments. I would kind of do an analysis of your schedule and take a look. What are we doing in the afternoon? How could we combine that? How could we make that afternoon just slow down a little bit and give quality care to your patients without that chaos? And it's very doable. It's very doable. Keep working on it.
I might add, too, that patients actually really appreciate that. When they find out they don't have to come back, they could just come in 6 months, they like that.
Yeah.
I have a what question instead of a why question for each of you. As I've been listening to these questions, we're kind of headed down a track, so let's change direction just a little bit. For each of you, if you could step back at the beginning of your career and think about what it is that you've learned from Bill and implement one thing when you first started, what would that be? And each of you, I'd like an answer, please.
I'm ready, so I'll go
Take it
first,
away.
Yeah. I bought my practice 6 months out of school, and as an I and a people person, I mistakenly believed that I was doing a good job if my seller or the original staff was mad at me. And so if everyone was happy, then that meant I was a good leader and the bills were getting paid, and it just sort of crept up on the entire practice slowly over time that there was no vision, there was no strong leadership, and so we were reacting and sort of just, like a ship on the sea in the waves, just getting pushed by the demands of the patients and the staff. And so when I finally got to that breaking point where I'm like, oh, I hate my job, I hate my life, and called Bill, and that's when I realized that actually what I had was a really amazing and awesome opportunity, and that we just needed a vision, and I needed to decide who we were going to be as a practice, and that was exciting for the staff, and cut the fat and go for it.
So we need to get you a new pin. Somebody took my pin. Where is it?
Am I a D now or something?
Sounds a little D behavior. I've got one here for you. So. Roy, same thing, same question.
I believe my answer is very similar. Over the years, as I was involved in dentistry and out of the office a lot, I kind of delegated leadership to the team, and that didn't work at all. So when Bill stepped into my life, it was, okay, Roy, you're the leader. You've got a strong person in the office, but you can't delegate leadership to that person. So you've got to step in, take some things back, and you've got to be the one that sets the vision, sets the direction for the practice. And it's just like it's been said, if we're not doing that, it's a ship just kind of floating around aimlessly, wandering, hoping to find land.
Yeah, when I took over my practice, the senior doctor was still working as an associate, and that made a huge challenge to the leadership aspect of things. So when Bill helped me out, came on board, we made a lot of changes in that respect, and trying to set a vision and a purpose and communicating that effectively to the team.
I think it's really interesting. All three of you have given a very similar answer: vision, leadership, purpose. These questions were not they didn't know what we were going to ask, yet they all gave the same answer. So as we're looking to make changes and improve things, it isn't the what. It isn't the how. It is the what.
Yeah.
So these are the things that we want to look for. You have to have a solid vision, absolutely rock solid. It's the constitution for your practice. It's the thing through which all decisions are made. And without that, everybody's just kind of aimlessly wandering with no direction. So I'm fascinated that y'all gave the same answer. That says a lot.
Stina?
Sure. What are some different things that you have added as services through the course of your program?
When Kay came into my office, she said, Roy, I think she said Dr. Thompson maybe, have you considered orthodontics, Invisalign? I said, I'm not going to do that. No, I don't want to do braces. And so I ended up we went and did Invisalign, and then we did 6 month smiles, and then I took a 2-year ortho course. Now, we still don't do a lot of ortho, but it's one more service. I had a dentist that he did very well in marketing that placing implants is incredibly difficult. And he was about the only one in my town that did it. And so at one time I got frustrated with an oral surgeon placing one a little out of alignment. And I called the Mish Institute and I said, hey, I want to sign up for implants. How soon will I place one? And they're like, oh, after the first course. Well, this dentist had been telling me for 20 years, no, it's super difficult, 5 years of knowledge, and you might get to place one. So I end up signing up. Now, Dr. Mish teaches you where to place one so you don't get in trouble. So it's not like the most difficult one you're going to ever do. But so we started doing implants, and then we did conscious sedation. So we just added a little step by step. I've always done most all aspects of general dentistry, but you know, bone grafting, periosurgery, those are not difficult procedures for you to do.
Laura?
I'm not that special. I mean, I do fillings and crowns and dentures. I do some endo. I did add CAD/CAM after I had my summit, and it seemed really obvious I should be doing that. I'm excited to do more inlays and onlays instead of fillings, and we're offering that to patients as an option. I am going to add LANAP starting in January, and we're finally getting a nitrous oxide.
Wait a minute, I thought you said you didn't put a date on that.
Oh, it's done. I just don't know when in my blocks I'm going to do LANAP, but yeah, my training's in November, so that'll be exciting. And I'm taking my first big course. I'm going to COIS in February, so that's it.
Josh, what have you added?
We've tried to add something new every year. Implants, sedation, molar endo, tissue grafting, advanced bone grafting. And a lot of those things just add a whole bunch of extra options for you to fill those bigger blocks in the morning.
And what's next?
IV sedation.
IV sedation. Uh-huh.
Yeah, you've got me convinced.
Yeah. You know, here's an interesting thing. I look at big producers. They do a lot of things. And I also look at big producers and I see that some form of sedation is imperative. As a matter of fact, I see the biggest producers are doing IV. And I know it was Stephen Greenman who added IV sedation to his practice a number of years ago. And he was saying one night on a webinar that it's faster to get a patient ready to go with IV sedation than it is to do local anesthetic, especially mandibular block. You can have a patient totally unconscious before a mandibular block takes effect. So keep adding something to your practice.
Yes, so one of the things that, just like my dad's talking about, we really see the big docs are all CE junkies. You know, we see a lot of advancing of skills and services that are offered. So that's something here illustrated on our panel, but definitely something that we see with all of our higher producers.
Something that Laura touched on as well that's really important is you're deciding what things to add, whether it be IV sedation or implants or sleep apnea. You need to set a date by which you will have it completed. If you just say, yeah, I think I'm going to add IV sedation. Well, by when? If you don't do the by when, it'll never happen.
You know, one of the things to think about on LANAP therapy, Tracy Hughes, who's been on our bicycle trip the last 2 years, is a LANAP instructor from Boulder, Colorado. And interesting thing, when she started teaching, it was all general dentists. And a few years ago, I had a chance to speak to 40 periodontists. I could have split the room right down the center of the room. When I mentioned LANAP therapy, it's like they separated immediately, and we had Baptists on this side and Catholics on this side. And, and I asked the group that didn't use it, what courses have you taken? Of course, the answer was, we're not even going to look at it. And this group of people thought it was the greatest thing since sliced bread, or maybe I should say since sliced gums. And what Tracy tells us now is that a majority of her students are periodontists. So the periodontists have now embraced it, so it's just something to think about. So I want a question for all of you. So give me an idea. How many team members do you have in your office?
I have 4 incredible team members.
4 incredible team members. And what are their positions?
We have 2 hygienists, my assistant, and front desk.
Uh-huh. And Laura, same question.
I have 5 plus a hygienist who fills in more often than she doesn't. So maybe 6, I don't know.
Okay.
So 2 assistants, 2 hygienists plus 1, and 1 person at the front desk.
Uh-huh. Roy?
2 assistants, 1 hygienist 1 day a week, so really 1.25. And one, I'm a C, by the way.
Are you sure it's not 1.26 if you work overtime one day?
She's paid on salary. It's always 1.25. And then one person that handles it, mainly administrative. So there's 4 team members plus myself.
Yeah. And I want to ask Josh, since he's down a certain number of days, so how are phones handled in your office when you're gone?
We still forward a phone to a cell phone,
Uh-huh.
only because of the results that we're getting. You know,
Uh-huh.
I mean, as long as the team is doing their due diligence, that's the way we started it. We haven't switched to having somebody in the office yet, although I do think it is a good idea.
Okay, well, here's the thing. If it works, it's working. I would say, ladies, keep it working. Laura, how do you handle that?
Oh, we just have somebody come in to the office during vacation. One person has admin time.
And how do you determine who comes in?
We just have a rotating schedule, just have a little meeting. They all get along, so it's fine. They just choose which days and try to keep it even.
Mm-hmm. Roy?
In the evenings, the cell phone goes to my phone. I probably don't get one call every month. So I handle evenings, and then on the weekends, they divide it up, take a cell phone, and they alternate that. When we're out of the office 6 to 7 weeks of the year, they make the magic happen again. I don't ever get involved. I just know somebody's going to have the cell phone, and if they need me, they will call me or text me and find me wherever I am.
Excellent. So it can be done either way. Question over here? Somebody's got a microphone? Oh, we just answered it. So it's real. I agree. I think the staff can figure that out, how to do it. But it does. And one thing you'll notice, all of them are talking about their team, not their staff. I mean, this takes real teamwork to make this happen, and it takes people who are willing to say, okay, but look what you get in trade for that. You get all this other time off, and so is it really? But I actually kind of favor in the office. But if you're able to do it outside, and you know that day you're on the phone, that's not a day you can go to the mall. It's not a day you can do other things. It's a day that you're actually answering the phone. So I don't care where you do it, but you've got to be dedicated to that. That's my point.
We have a question down here.
I was just curious, as far as with the power questions, if there was maybe a certain power question you preferred to ask the patients yourself instead of one of your team members, and then just how the handoff from before you walk into the room, how kind of a summary of the answers to those power questions.
My favorite power question is, would you like to get started on that right now? And it works.
What's your handoff on that, Josh? Clear the schedule.
Laura, I think you can answer that question well also. Your case acceptance is markedly higher than most people's. Tell us a little about that.
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
It's true.
We pay attention to these things. Remember those little forms that you guys fill out?
Actually, I would prefer not to have to ask any power questions at all, because if I'm asking power questions, then that means I'm not drilling. Yeah.
So who's asking the power question?
Can you tell who coaches Laura?
Yeah, my hygienists, we have a rhythm where the hygienists interview the patients, and as soon as I come in, we're looking at images, and the hygienists are giving me a summary as we go, and then if it sounds like they might be interested, then I might say, well, is this something that you'd like to do soon, or when would you like to start, or something like that, and then I leave.
So you really aren't too much involved. You roll in and do it because if the burr's not turning, the bonus is shrinking.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But
Okay.
I do think it's really important, and I make sure I emphasize this to the patient. It's their option, and as Bill says, you don't have to do anything. And I think that when patients realize that I don't care whether they do it or not, that I don't need them to for my new boat, then there's a more of a trust, and they think, well, okay, she's telling me what I could do if I want to optimize my dental health.
Yeah, but remember, if they did do it, you'd get a bigger boat.
Yeah.
But listen to what Laura is saying. This is absolutely true. I mean, if you got nothing else out of this seminar, get this point. If you act, sure, we had a course from Herbie Cohen one time who teaches negotiations, and you want to be interested, but not too. I'd like you to do this, but I don't care. And if you can get that across, Omar Reed was one of my early mentors, And Omar Reed used to make a comment. He said, you know, I married a wealthy woman and I'm inherently lazy. Now, I never knew what he was talking about when I first heard that 2 years out of dental school. I married a wealthy woman and I'm inherently lazy. What he was saying was, I don't care if you do this treatment or not. And the interesting thing is, once you portray that to your patients, they can't wait to say yes. But as soon as you look like you're anxious, boy, they dig in. So you've got to, not too much. It's up to you. I don't really care. And once you start to push, they start to resist. So I think that's a great point. It's worth the price of admission just to hear that. Roy, any comments on that?
Yes, some of y'all are not old enough to remember when Ross Perot ran for president, but he had a vice presidential candidate, and they had debates, and that vice presidential candidate was on the stage with two real good debaters, and they asked a question. He said, you know, I don't really know why I'm even here. That's the way I feel right now with these two. I needed my
Incidentally,
pen.
they lost the election.
I need my pen to be taking notes.
They lost the election, too.
So actually, Roy, one of the things that we are going to talk about today is balance, and this is one of the reasons why you all are here on the panel is, so what are some different things, and we know you're pretty active in the ADA, what are some different things that you do to give back? Because, you know, we talk about, you know, these numbers and production and things like that, but when this really is, the focus is balance. And so what are some different things that you do to give back, and or have you taken any interesting humanitarian trips?
Okay.
No, that's to all of you.
So earlier the question was asked, what could you do different in your practice? I think mine would be hang the phone up or get off the phone. There are days I've been to the office, back to my private office, and gone to make a call, and the receiver is gone from the phone. They've unplugged it and hidden it. And I get that message, you've been on the phone too much. So yes, last year I was in Chicago or DC about 30 days with the American Dental Association and the Academy of General Dentistry. So that took a lot of time. So that's one way I'm doing it. The other is I have been chairman of the board of a faith-based dental clinic. So we do comprehensive dentistry out of Nashville, and then we started a clinic in Murfreesboro where I live too. So I've been the chairman of their board and probably their primary fundraiser for the last 3 years. And that's a lot of time also. And then trying to get other dentists involved in that also, that's the next step to get everybody else involved so I can back off. So those two things, that's enough.
Well, one of the things I
that's
would
great.
like to say, and first off, I'd like to thank Roy and everybody else involved in organized dentistry. How many of you read about Obamacare on a regular basis or hear your physician friends talking about Obamacare and are glad you're not part of it? I mean, we are really happy not to be part of that, and part of that is thank you to people like Roy who have working on things to make dentistry more accessible to these people. And you know, the government would like to step in and do this, and this is true in both countries, both the United States and Canada. We can help that problem, but if we don't help this problem through organized dentistry and clinics like Roy is talking about, government thinks they can solve this for us. We can do this ourselves, and I know all of you volunteer a lot in your community, do a lot of dentistry. When I was practicing, we did 4 days a quarter right in our office, and we treated a ton of people because I could do it better in my office than I could in the clinic that we had available. But Roy and some of these others have gone out and created these great clinics, and I know several of you are involved in this. But get involved, and that's how we're going to stay private practice, fee for service. And I know Matt Giulianelli has gotten involved in politics up in Vermont, and Vermont is the governor of Vermont is trying to make Vermont the first state in the country as a single-payer system. What does that mean? That means that every patient that comes to a dental office in Vermont will be on Medicaid. What does that mean for your profitability? What does it mean for the level of dentistry that you can present to clients? As soon as they hit that level, I mean, it's going to be scary, but he's involved. And Ryan is involved in Wisconsin. And we're working at this, and with good leadership, we can maintain and actually improve what we have. But if we sit back into the vacuum, there are people in Washington, D.C. that would like to step into that vacuum.
I love Bill talking about the invisible dentist. One of the things the American Dental Association really is pushing is dentists being leaders in your community, whether it's PTA, whether it's the city council, whether it's being on the water board, the school board, whatever you can do.
The water board's been really frowned on by this administration, so.
You know, there's a big invasion of anti-fluoridationists, if you haven't realized that.
Oh, in Portland, they voted against it. They voted fluoride out of the water. I mean, for 40 years, we've had fluoridated water dramatically lower the decay rate in children, and a certain group of people in Portland decided fluoride's poisonous, and we voted it out of the water system. So anyway,
So
crazy.
get involved. That's the point. And those things help your practice too. When you're out there leading the community, when something about dentistry comes up, somebody's going to call you. When somebody's looking for a dentist, they'll look for you too.
Yeah.
So you do that primarily to be a leader in the community, but there are fringe benefits.
Laura, same question.
Okay, well, when I was young, there were 7 kids in my family, and my dad was unemployed for almost the entire time I was growing up. My mom literally fed our family by going to sell her plasma, and then she would take her $20 to the discount grocery store and come home with food. And we were patients at a clinic, a dental clinic that was for low-income families in the city. It's associated with one of the local hospitals. And when I was a dental student, I got to be an intern there, which was wonderful because it was like, oh yeah, I used to be a patient here, and that was kind of sort of a first. And now I'm on their board, and actually next year I'm going to be the president, so that's kind of fun. Yeah, it's actually not that much work, but it's a good story.
Well, but the point is that you do it. You take the time and you care
Yeah, you're doing
enough to give back, and that's
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah, yep. And our team went to the Mission of Mercy that our state sponsors, and we'll be doing that yearly because that was a great experience. And hopefully we'll do some mission trips too as we get sort of all of our systems in place and we have more time. I'd like to see us going somewhere where there's need.
Josh?
One of my favorite ways before I had children was I used to get involved with dental mission trips, and I had done 4 of them. And I used to always really enjoy getting the schools involved, finding toothbrushes and toothpaste for us. And then after the trip, I would usually come back to them and present to them what we did. So we got the community involved as well. So it was a lot of fun.
Excellent.
So it isn't how much you do, it's that you do something. You've all seen the bumper sticker that says, everybody can do something, but no one can do everything. So it isn't a matter of spending your entire life devoting it to that. Laura may not spend much time at it, but the impact she has is huge. So it isn't a matter of amount, it's a matter of quality. So don't be afraid if you have just a few minutes a week that you can help somebody out. Don't be bashful. Do it.
Thank you.
Stina?
Have a question? You need a microphone? Oh, you got one, okay.
I know y'all mentioned earlier about vacations, how you passed a cell phone. Somebody would have the cell phone. Y'all do that versus some kind of an answering service?
Absolutely. When I'm out of the office, somebody has a cell phone. I don't require them to be at the office, but they know that's their week, that they really have to be committed to answering it between 8 and 5. After 5, it goes to voicemail. They check the messages.
Go ahead.
We just have someone come in, and then if they're gone for the day, then it rolls to the answering machine, which has my cell phone number on it. You would be surprised. People do not abuse that. They really only call me if something bad happens. So we're covered that way.
Yeah, I'm the same as Roy. We'd pass out the cell phone and then voicemail after 5 o'clock. We've never tried an answering service.
A couple of years ago, I did a telephone technique program with Danny Bobril here in Chicago, and it was kind of an interview situation. And he says, "What's the first rule of telephone etiquette?" And I said, "You're going to laugh at this, but it's answer the phone." It's answer the phone and figure out a way to get your phone answered, because you're spending hundreds and thousands of dollars to make that phone ring, and then not to answer it is not effective. I don't know about all of you, but recently I was looking for some services, and I just went right down the list. It was actually a new roof on our house because we had a hailstorm. I'm looking for a roofer to do it. I went right down the list. The first 2 didn't answer the phone. The third one answered the phone. They got a $15,000 deal. And it was or 8, whatever it was, 18 or 20. The thing is, the first 2 got 0, because I'm not going to leave a message. I want to get this scheduled What personality type am I? But the deal was, I'm not going to wait for you. And the sad part is that many of the public look at dentists as the generic dentist, just like I look at the generic roofer. Okay.
Back to collections, you said that you took 50% down to make the scheduled appointment. And then at the time of service, you collected the other 50%. Was that even if they had insurance?
50% of their portion. So we don't collect the insurance portion. We collect what we expect their portion will be. Does that
And
sound
you
right,
always
Mick?
underestimate what the insurance will pay. Always underestimate what the insurance will pay and collect that. Yes.
Hey, do all three of y'all have cone beams to do implants? Roy, Laura, do y'all have cone beam machines to do implants?
I do. There you are, Joseph. I do. I added that this year.
Yes, we do also.
I will.
All right. Right here in the front. Yes, Joe.
How often do you have team meetings, and if you could briefly describe those meetings, it would be a big help.
So my ideal schedule when I'm in town is patients Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday administrative day. Everybody's there Thursday. We used to let the hygienist see patients. I'm like, no, we can't cut her out of administrative too. So we do Thursdays administrative, and then we do, basically the morning is team training, the afternoon becomes administrative. We used to do Fridays as our BMW meetings, and we pull those into Thursdays now so the team has Fridays off.
Morning meeting?
Morning meeting always, administrative afternoon.
And what about evening meeting at the end of the day?
We always huddle at the end of the day.
Okay.
We always have a morning huddle, we have an end of the day huddle. Our end of the day huddle is a recap on production, look at numbers, and acknowledgments for each other, you know, who's impacted your day.
Laura?
We have a morning huddle every day. It's very Blatchford classic, right down the line, just like Nancy taught us. We've kind of need to work on our evening huddle. It's scheduled, but we seem to always run over. I'm sorry. It's that afternoon chaos thing. We're working on it.
Uh-huh.
And we have our monthly 4x4s as well.
Josh, same question.
Yeah, we run a morning and an evening meeting, and then with how many days we take off, we usually end up having a meeting every other Wednesday. Every other Wednesday that we're in the office.
Question over here.
I'm curious to know if your staff is hourly or salaried, and if they're salaried, how do you calculate that?
So this has always been a pet peeve of mine. Y'all know bill is a D. That means big picture, details later. And so this is an issue I recently went on with one of the companies and did a staff manual, and I went toe-to-toe with the attorney because I said, no, they're going to be salaried. And they said, you just cannot do that. But the way my pay is structured, if I do it by the rules, they're paid less than they're paid on salary. So I'm still paying them salary, but we do have to run a formula for weeks like this to make sure that if they worked overtime and the rules apply, that they get paid overtime. But typically, they're paid more still by just paying them salary. But I do keep documents on that now.
So the thing is you have to, who are you working with, Roy?
I'm working with Bent Erickson.
Bent Erickson is one of the companies we recommend. This is in the United States. Cedar is another one out of Tucson. And you have to follow your state rules. You can put people on salary in some states, and other states you cannot, no matter what you want to do. But if you don't put people on salary, you can give them a guaranteed pay per pay period. In other words, a guaranteed number of hours per pay period, which is the incentive that Brad was talking about this morning, so that you're guaranteed this many hours, but we go home when the work is done. It's accomplished, it's the same thing, and it's legal. And so how do you do it? Yeah, I'm one to say, okay, let's figure out, let's make the decision and then figure out how we're going to do it. Laura, how are your team paid?
We're just getting, finishing up getting this redefined, and basically it's sort of like a salary, but if you work more than the expected 32 hours, you get more.
And you do have to document the hours no matter how you get
Yeah,
paid.
everybody has to clock in and out every day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, and I was going to add one more thing about team meetings. After we're done with our patients on Thursday, we do have practice-sponsored group exercise, which has been really fun.
Like
We've
what?
done yoga and circuit training.
Okay.
I pay the for the class fee, and we all go and, warrior 2 together, down dog, all that stuff. Yeah.
My team's on salary also.
Uh-huh. And your team exercise, probably take them out to the gravel pit and do a little rifle shooting?
They haven't wanted to come with you.
They haven't wanted to do it yet. Josh was a Marine for several years before he went to dental school, so it's been part of his life. Okay, well, I want to thank our panelists for doing this, and we've got one more thing we want to do before the end of the day. And part of what I wanted to accomplish here was, they put their pants on the same way the rest of us do, one leg at a time, and yet they do very well. So thank you very much for your participation.